Welcome back to Torah on the Go. Whether you are taking a break from work or walking your dog or on the Peloton, we so appreciate that you have decided to take a few minutes out of your day and study with me and Rabbi Feinstein.
Nice to have you here.
Well, we are now on chapter 19 of the book of Exodus, still in Parshat Yitro, this time endeavoring to prepare for the moment of revelation atop Sinai.
Astonishing.
God tells Moses, go to the people and get ready for 3 days. 3 days of getting ready.
Right.
What do you think was actually going on in the camp besides for the details of the washing of clothes and the separating of men and women and everything that the Torah describes that was happening in the camp? What do you think the children of Israel were actually talking about?
Of getting ready to meet God. Just imagine what this is like. Getting ready to meet you. You just had a bar mitzvah in your family. 3 days before the bar mitzvah is like.
It's craziness.
It's pandemonium.
Pandemonium, right.
Yeah. And the chapter, what's wonderful about this chapter is the Bible is so exquisitely put together as a story. The storytelling is exquisite. But there's sometimes in the Hebrew Bible when a chapter is badly edited, or at least it's not so badly edited, it's just a mess. It's like you can see that there are multiple stories, one on top of the other, and it's so hard to figure out what the heck is going on at any one moment. Chapter 19, this chapter, which is so important because this is the chapter where God and the people meet face to face, as it were, is so badly edited. And you can either say, well, they just blew it in this time, or you could say this was on purpose, that they were trying to convey with the structure of the narrative and the texture of the narrative, the pandemonium, the sort of confusion that comes upon us whenever we're in the midst of one of those moments.
No, there's a chaos. There's a chaos in the text. And there's also, this is one of the only times where God tells Moses, make sure that the people don't touch the mountain. They could die. Moses goes back and relays all the instructions. Moses goes back to God, and God gives Moses a second set of instructions, and they sound a whole lot like the first.
Right.
Except this is one of the only times in the Bible where somebody says to God, you told me that already.
Right.
Instead of the text, Moses says to God, like, don't worry. It feels like God is just as nervous about this moment as the Jewish people are.
Right. And what he's nervous about is that he loses control. He's because divinity is on one level dangerous. Right? And look, it's the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know. You open that box, God knows what's going to come out of that box. And the Torah has this sense of we all want to come close to God, but not too close. The only one who isn't afraid to get too close is Moses, because he's the one invited up to the mountain. The rest of us have to stay back. And God keeps saying to him, keep them back. I don't want anybody to get hurt. And so he keeps having that instruction.
So God warns us to stay away from the mountain, make sure you don't touch it. And just like you explained, you would think from the text that the Jewish people would be rushing towards the mountain to be as close. Midrash tells us that it was exactly the opposite. Yeah. Jews were so terrified by the cacophony of the shofar blast, the lightning and the thunder and the earthquakes and the trembling and everything that was happening that we recoiled. We recoiled in fear from looking at the mountain. And angels literally had to push us in the back to shove us closer to the mountain because we were trying to run away from the mountain. And so even in the Midrashic tradition of this moment is revealed this kind of chaotic, push and pull of God entering the world, of what happens when God really enters the world like this.
Right. And the key verses in this story, God comes down the mountain, whatever the heck that means. And the people are at the bottom of the mountain looking up. And it's a volcano. The mountain's quaking. There's noise. There's smoke. There's trembling. And there's just this atmosphere of complete fear, of absolute sheer terror at this moment. And then God calls Moses up to the mountain, and we get the rest of the covenant that's coming.
So there's a wonderful verse here that has a rich tradition in the Talmud, right? And the verse is Vayityatzvu b'tachtit hahar.
Tachtit hahar.
Right? And that's the phrase. So the literal translation in the Hebrew is, and they stood at the base of the mountain, but we know from the Yiddish, from the Hebrew, right, tuchas doesn't mean just the bottom of the mountain, it's behind the mountain. The rabbis want to understand this to be they stood under the mountain, right? God the rabbis in the Masechet Shabbos tells us that God lifts up the mountain above the heads of the Jewish people and says, you will accept the Torah, or you'll all die right here. I will drop this mountain on your heads and bury you in the spot at Sinai.
Right.
And then we say Na'aseh v'nishma, which sounds lovely, right? After, it's an offer we couldn't refuse. This is back to the Godfather, right? So this is God as Don Corleone. Here's an offer you can't refuse. How does the story change? Because there isn't a rabbi alive that reads that verse from the Torah when it's read on Shabbos Yitro and doesn't hear that page of Talmud explained to us. How does that change the verse if we think to ourselves that we actually were reticent to stand there in the first place?
Well, again, it's what does it mean to become God's people, and what does it cost you to become God's people? It means that you're going to be under the authority of God all the time, and this is a people that just escaped from Pharaoh, and the question is, are they perceiving the God of Moses, the God who Moses is introducing to, as another Pharaoh? It's the same narrative all over again. And we just got out of slavery, and you're going to make us slaves all over again. And so there's a reticence because I've been free now for 3 weeks. For God's sakes, let me be free. And you come along and say, no. Now you got to serve this master. So there really is a sense of pushing and pulling. On the one hand, they're attracted to this. This is the God who liberated them. And it's God, after all.
And there's a lot of midrash about Na'aseh v'nishma, how willing we were, how excited we were to accept the Torah.
That's one voice.
Right.
And then the other voice is, I don't want to be under this. I don't want to be under this another authority. I don't want to be under another authority. So there's a real tension here. I mean, again, you and I joke because you're raising teenagers, God help you. And you can feel that ambivalence in raising a teenager. The kid very much wants to be independent, and at the same time, they very much want to be connected to you. Right? It's every teenager who says to mom and dad, leave me alone, I hate you, I want to make my own decisions, but don't leave me alone. Was the name of a book. There's a wonderful book that says something like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, now drive me and Jennifer to the mall.
Yeah.
And there's the ambivalence there, and I think that ambivalence is exactly what's being played out here.
Right. And it was like our adolescence in the desert. That's often how the prophets refer to it.
That's right.
In our adolescence in the desert.
Exactly right. And you're being invited in. You're being invited into God's space. And God's space is not an easy place to be. And this people is not mature yet to stand in God's place and to appreciate what's being offered to them. It just sounds like a lot of rules at this point. And the question is, when will they be ready to accept the freedom that comes with that regulation, with that rule, the spiritual maturity that comes with those rules? When does a teenager stop and say, thank you for putting limits on me?
Right.
They never do. They may think it at one point, maybe when they're 40, but in the meantime, it's a struggle. It's an absolute struggle.
I'm looking for a skilled way to transition between preparing for Sinai and preparing for opening day of Major League Baseball, but I fear that that's the most skillful way that I just did it.
It's a moment of revelation.
Moment of revelation. It's exactly right.
We're going to stand at the bottom of the mountain, and on day one of the season, every team is in first place.
That's right.
Even your beloved
even
Chicago
the Cubs. It's the best.
Cubs
it's the best morning of any season
place.
For a Cubs fan.
My Dodgers still have the best roster in baseball,
and they're going to have the best roster for many years to come.
For many years to come, and this year they even have pitching.
It's unbelievable.
Which is kind of new for them. This is so. And your Cubs have less, but it doesn't matter. On day one,
we're equal.
Na'aseh v'nishma, we're all there.
So I can tell you that the Cubs, I really believe, profoundly misunderstood spring training this year. We played our starters all 9 innings for every spring training game. We were undefeated for a large part of spring training. I don't think anybody explained to them that was not the point of what spring training is. But we got some sort of trophy, I'm sure, whether it was made out of fruit roll-ups or whatnot. I want to wish the Cubs best luck in the world. They're going to need it. I wish the Dodgers the best luck in the world. They're certainly not going to need it. And because Ian's always behind the scenes here working hard on the podcast, I want to wish the Phillies the best luck in the world. To everybody who turns on their television or the computer to follow Major League opening day, enjoy this holiday of Yom. I'm trying to figure Yom Baseball.
Yom
Chag Sameach.
Ptichat HaMischak, the
Ptichat
day of
HaMischak.
the opening game.
The day of the opening of the
Right.
games. All right, have a wonderful, wonderful opening day.
Amen.